Well, this lady I'm going to talk to today, she has got such great positive energy. I chatted to her at a different time and I came away feeling just energized and yeah. I mean, you need to know about this lady. I'm going to introduce her. Tanja Diamond. She is a master life strategist. Oh, Tanya, tell us more about that because and more about you because I want to know more, please.
I'm super excited to be here. Thanks for that energetic intro. And yeah, so Master Life Strategist is basically means that I have impacted a lot of people, so 82,000 in a lot of countries, 60, in the areas of life, love, and business. And so my day can take me anywhere from talking about animal behavior in the morning to people's sex life in the afternoon to somebody's online business marketing. If it's about life, I can strategize with you about it. And then there's that tiny little thing about me being a Tantra Lineage Holder, and that's the one that really throws people. And I think that's
Mm,
probably what we're here to talk about today.
absolutely. I'm intrigued already. So, yeah, let's explore that. Tantra. Now, I am aware that this kind of started, oh, centuries ago. It's kind of related to India, Buddhism, and Hinduism. So that much I know. And I think it is a kind of way of being. It's a practice. But you're gonna explain much more because I've only just touched the edges, I think.
Yeah, Tantra is probably, at least in the West, one of the most understood words that there is. And, you know, if you Google Tantra, you get everything from spiritual philosophy of life all the way to tantrahookers.com. So, yeah, nobody, everybody's like confused. And I get asked this question a lot. What is Tantra? Well, the word Tantra actually means a path or a system or a systemized dogmatic practice. And so, even a treatise or scientific study. So, if you really go to the roots of Tantra, it means a path. That's how I say it. So, if you're on a tantric path, you're on a path of learning. What are you learning is the next question. Well, it depends on the school of Tantra because there were many way back when. In the very beginning of Tantra, there were very few. It was a scientific technology for transforming the human condition, the study of the microcosm and macrocosm of the universe versus how it related to us. So by
Mhm.
studying things inside us, we could understand more about the things outside of us. By studying things outside of us, we could understand more about inside of us. And it was an energy mastery practice, learning to master the energy of the universe and yourself. And then along the way, as things started to do, mold and evolve like they do with everything in the world, in about the 10th century, there was a guy who decided he'd seen all these Westerners showing up to India and Asia looking for these exotic arts. And so he was a businessman and he put together yoga and Ayurvedic medicine and some Kama Sutra and some other stuff, and he called it like Tantra. And so all these people flocked in to learn these, weird sexual positions and techniques and meditation with it. And then it became all about this, what I call neo tantra, which is pretty far away from classical tantra. And
Mm.
then when it hit the States in the 60s, it really took an offshoot and it became solely about having extended orgasms and things like yoni, which is vaginal massage, and penis massage, and those types of things. So it quickly became a sex only or exclusively kind of thing. And now it's watered down even more since the 60s, and it's become kind of a free for all. You can see white tantra, pink tantra, blue tantra, black tantra, whatever, and everybody's just kind of spinning off on whatever their thing is. I actually have my hybrid is modern Tantra, because my lineage teacher, who handed me down a classical lineage unbroken through thousands of years from teacher to student, said, we're not going to stand in the Ganges River anymore and expel our guts to wash them and put them back in our body. So could you evolve practices with the power of the past into things we need today, which is my specialty, is in optimization of the nervous system.
Great. That's really helpful to understand that, because yes, I guess myself and many others in the Western world would only know Tantra related to sex.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's really interesting to know that it's a much wider and broader kind of thing to it. But yeah, I think I can see where the other practices have evolved from that, but I'm more interested in how you use it.
Absolutely. So coming from a lineage background means that, like I said, I was handed down the knowledge that it's pure form, and it's via oral talking transmission, practice transmission, and then if the student is ready, energetic transmission, how you get all that info. And I stumbled upon my teacher when I was in my early 20s. And so it's had a profound impact on how I live in the world. And in the simplest terms, I would probably say that my practice is to inhale what is and exhale what will be. So to stay in the moment of life.
Yeah.
And, everybody's talking about the now and how to be present. That's big stuff, right? And this is really where it comes from, is because yoga is also one of the oldest tantric practices. And so that idea that living in the now helps us is absolutely true. But for modern day, living in the now helps us and our nervous system stay resilient. And so I've used Tantra. I do teach the sexual arts of Tantra as well. So I teach the energetic form of Tantra, the spiritual form of Tantra, the sexual forms of Tantra, and then my brand, which is like the hybrid of optimizing the human nervous system for better health and removing trauma and getting rid of blocks that we have from programming that we get as a kid. So the modern version for me is basically just going, okay, here I am in my life, and if I'm scared, holding back, feeling too caught in the past, too caught in the future, I'm missing all the excitement and the joy and the moment and of now. And it's kind of pithy. I mean, we throw around a lot of terms, presence, now, like this, just throw them around like that, and people are like, yeah, that sounds cool. What is it really? And our brains really want to stay stuck. Our brains are actually not programmed for change. Our brains are programmed to just learn something and then automate it. So with technology and the lives we live today, our brains aren't really working as well as they need to, because they're stuck in lots of things that don't work for us, meaning, old programs from childhood and things like that. So we are pretty scattered, right? We're up in our heads. A lot of our energy and our feelings, we've disconnected from our body, living in our heads. And so how I use it for my own practice, I've cured 3 incurable illnesses. So that's how I use it one way. Incredible sex, absolutely. Take a breath and have an orgasm every single time. And so I can use it in so many different areas of my life. The Secret, oh my gosh, why am I? Napoleon Hill, right? Chapter 13, the whole Think and Grow Rich thing. I actually know the secrets of that sexual transmutation because that is a Tantra thing.
And I think you're so right, because you talk about the nervous system, and yeah, that is the problem. People get either caught in their past with that same repeating patterns, or their brain goes fast forward and all they're thinking about and imagining is what could happen in the future.
Yeah.
And we're missing out. We're missing out so much, as you say, because neither of those things can we control.
Right.
All we have is the right now, isn't it?
Right.
And we miss so much, but our nervous system gets deregulated because we're living in the past or in the future.
And also because of technology, because of our schedules,
Mm.
because of the disconnect we have from the earth. Like just the fact that most of us don't go barefoot outside very
Mm-hmm.
often is enough to dysregulate your nervous system. So it's not like you've had
Mm.
to have been through a big trauma.
Mm.
Though I was talking yesterday to a guy who was saying, like, he heard one of my podcasts where I was talking about overt trauma versus just everyday trauma, and he's like, well, what
Yeah.
do you mean by that? And it's like, so anything that bumps your nervous system, anything that frightens it or causes it to contract, making this
Mm.
easy, it's like things that contract you and don't let go
Mm.
are trauma to the nervous system.
Mm.
So we're made to contract and expand. Every
Yeah.
single cell, everything we do, inhale, exhale, it's all contraction and expansion. That's the simple way to look at it. And if we get into a contracted state, and everybody here knows how that feels, that's that part where your chin goes down and your eyes go down and your stomach gets tight and you may not breathe for a moment, that type of feeling. If you're in that long enough or in a fright, it happens suddenly, the body can dysregulate, the nervous system can become dysregulated just from that.
Mm.
And so, what kind of things are that? I mean, from a movie you watch, somebody yells, you see a
Yeah.
violent act. You don't even have to have violence perpetrated on yourself. You
No,
can
no,
just,
no, exactly.
yeah. And so, there's mass opportunity for us to become dysregulated and then struggle working to become resilient again and regulated again. But it
Mm.
all really comes back to um, the breath. I'm an advocate for people to have self-healing tools in their hands. That is a
Mm.
big mission of mine in my life because, when we want to heal, there's lots of ways that we get stuck trying to heal. Money, time, finding the right person, not jiving. And then there's the dynamic of the fact that if we don't do our healing work first, once we're in a dynamic with somebody else, that changes everything as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's really how I take the power of classical Tantra and move it into what do we need today, for our sex lives, for our business, for our relationships, for any part of our lives that we're living, is this ability to connect back to yourself
Mm.
and to actually expand the places that are contracted.
Yeah, and I think what I notice a lot, and I'm sure you do too, is that people don't stop long enough to actually think what's going on inside. What is going on with my body?
Mm-hmm.
Where am I feeling? What am I feeling? And I talk to so many, and I'm sure you do. Ask them to check it out. What's happening for you right now? And they just look at me blankly as if to say, what? They haven't a clue, or
Yeah.
they distract themselves so much that they're constantly busy that they
Mm-hmm.
never actually have the time or give themselves the time to connect with themselves.
Yeah, 100%. The idea, it's another thing like that concept, connect to yourself. What does that mean? Well, if you have to think about how you feel, and I'm going to say that again, if you need to think about how you feel, you actually aren't feeling what you feel.
Mm.
And there's a way that if you're thinking about how you feel because you'll look up. If I say, how are you feeling? And your eyes move upward, you're trying to grab a memory
Yeah.
about something. And so you're thinking about how right now you could be feeling, which isn't the same thing as actually feeling what you're feeling. And I had a
Yeah.
partner once who came ripping out of the back. He had his office in the back room, and he comes, door slams open, and I think some type of emergency is happening, and he runs into the room and he yells, I had a feeling in my body. And he was absolutely like blown away. Like he was so, because it was the first time he'd actually connected to a feeling, and he's in his 40s, in his body that he hadn't thought about.
Wow.
So it's a profound experience if you've never had it, to actually experience the language of the body. Most of us have a toxic relationship or an abusive toxic relationship between our heads and our bodies.
Mm.
Everything's supposed to work on all cylinders. We have all this body wisdom, and we disconnect in favor of our logical brain, which has you know, it takes in things, but it takes in so few things comparatively to a full body experience, receiving information from your skin and from your energy system and from your breath and all of these areas that you can receive information. We tend to disconnect from that and just be in our heads and be logical and think about things. That doesn't mean you're not somebody who cries at movies and things like that. I'm not. There's a difference between emotive and actually being connected. And a lot of people who feel like they're emotive, they're kind of weepy. Those people that weep a lot, they never really cry. They have a lot of weepy kind of moments. Oh, that was a beautiful post on Facebook. I'm kind of teary. Actually are suppressing huge amounts of feelings.
Yeah, because it's out there. It's third party. It's not inside.
Yeah.
But then I think, I don't know about you, but I notice a lot of people stay in their heads because either they've never been shown how to show their emotions as a child. Either they've not been taught, like we're taught how to eat with a knife and fork. And I think emotions are the same thing. We need to be shown them or demonstrated or allowed them. And some aren't allowed, or some are those who it's too scary because those emotions relate to something really awful.
Yes.
And therefore they can't go there. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're, you know, I find this more with men, though it is prevalent with women too, that idea that if I were to actually feel the feelings I'm having, like I would never stop crying, or I would be dysfunctional. I wouldn't be able to function anymore. And I thought the coolest thing ever was when I learned that the longest an emotion lasts is 90 seconds. That is crazy town. So yeah, there's science behind that. The 90 seconds, the biggest emotion you can have only can last 90 seconds. Emotions cycle really quickly. But what you can do is have that a big emotion, right? And then grab it and loop on it. So if you were to allow it, to just move, it would transition. So
yeah, and I think what I've noticed over years that there were times when I would try and suppress those emotions and distract myself, which is not a bad thing at times, let's face it. But I wasn't connecting with them. Now, if I allow myself to feel, I find that I move on far quicker.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. I think people would just be surprised. I mean, like that idea, well, I'm going to cry forever or something. Well, you know, I have a challenge out there in the world that I've had for like 20 years now. So here you guys can participate. I decided to test that theory. Well, would I cry forever? Because I'm a what if person. Like, is that true? You know, and 18 hours was as long as I could do it. And I had to, like, after the first 6 hours, I had to start resurrecting, like, you know, dead pets. And then I had to go into world traumas and think about sex trafficking. And I had to put on sad minor music. I had to do everything to keep it up that long.
Yeah.
And so the truth of the matter is you won't feel that way forever. You may think you can keep thinking that way and bringing up feelings. But even that, like 18 hours was it. After that, my body was like, yeah, no, we're so bored with this. Yeah. And so I think that, you know, giving yourself, and you had said this earlier, the time and space to be still in the feeling would allow those feelings to move through you for you to be able to process them and to not be stuck in them. But if you're stuck, it's because you're not allowing them to move.
Yeah, and I the way I see it is that people will go, it's almost though, I'm going to liken it. I mean, most people may never have done this. I've done several fire walks. Now, if you stand there and you look at those embers, those burning embers, you can stand there and feel that fear. But the longer you stand there and look at that fear, the more the fear will be, because you've built it up in your head. So you might go towards the fire and then you'll step back and you'll go through the same kind of process of not doing it and feeling all that anxiety of what you think it's going to be like rather than going through it. Now, once you've been through it, it's a real sense of, okay, you may feel it's hot. You're going to have those sensations. I've never yet burnt my feet, which is great. I've done it several times now. But afterwards, the exhilaration that I've done this, I've been through it.
Yeah.
And it is the process of it. And on one occasion, I actually went through that fire 6 times, because every time I went through it, I got more connected with the fire.
Yes. Yeah.
And have you ever done a firewalk?
I have. I've done
It's,
some.
and it was just that sense of, actually I can cope with this. I can do this. It's okay. It's painful, but it's not unbearable.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And
And I think that the likening that to that emotional landscape of like, can I bear it? There's no actual. Just think about this. If for those logical people, from a logical standpoint, you wouldn't evolution, God wouldn't, if whether it's evolution or God, the universe, whatever you believe in, wouldn't have designed you to perish through emotions. So we do know that people can die of heartbreak,
yeah.
right? So that is true, but that's extreme. The majority of the things you're feeling will not kill you. In fact, if you don't feel them, they're more likely to kill you in the long run, because that's an internal conflict. And I believe that internal conflicts cause inflammation. And inflammation, of course, is the heart of disease.
Yeah. And that is that fear of what might happen.
Right.
Isn't it? It's that, well, what if, and the fear of the fear almost.
Yeah.
So that's why I was saying, standing, watching, looking at those fire embers and letting your mind run riot of this is going to hurt, I'm going to burn myself, I'll never do it, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And therefore, that's where the stuckness comes. Can't do it, can't do it, can't do it. Yeah.
In our brain, the same thing we think is saving us from everything. The part of our brain that's actually trying to keep us safe, but not really keeping us safe. Emotions are really pretty awesome. The feelings and the sensations in our body, and so many people bypass them, even for like go to the bathroom, get a drink of water. How many times a day are you not connecting, having a good relationship between your head and your body? Your body's tired, but you're like, yeah, forget it. Doing all these things teaches mistrust of self. And I think if we're going to talk about the worst pain that a human has, is that abandonment and mistrust of self.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that that's the key if you want to live a happy, extraordinary life. And nobody's happy 100% of the time, by the way. That's, because emotions last 90 seconds, right? So even happiness is a transitory landscape. We're textured beings. If you look at the world outside, if we take a tantric moment and we look at the world, no sunrise is the same. No sunset is the same. No tree is the same from year to year, season to season, that type of thing. Nothing is static. And yet we attempt to be static. Static in like love. We have to feel love all the time for our children, or all the time for our spouse, or all the time for our job, or whatever. This idea that we attain some type of static moment is ridiculous. Texture is the name of the game. And if you learn to swim and live and enjoy that texture and notice that texture in everything, then you get to notice the texture in yourself, which includes the physical texture of aging, the physical texture of loss and gain, because there's always both. Loss of some things, gain of other things. And the magic that appears if you look at yourself and feel yourself as that textured being, as that sunrise, as that sunset, as that old tree that's in your yard that's hundreds of years old, and you see the texture there, then you are living in that moment. That would be what I would consider inhaling what is and exhaling what will be.
Wow, that's so fascinating. One thing that you would say to people, take this away, do this now, or have a go, or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe in practicality and simplicity and things that are quick. Because, yes, we are busy and nobody needs another 30-minute, hour-long practice to try to fit into their day because they're just not going to do it. So I tend to teach people what I call micro practices, and they're anywhere between moments and 5 minutes is the longest. And so the most helpful thing you could do to start to get really connected to your body and start to really move, let that energy move. It wants to move. First of all, that's what it's designed to do. So if you're keeping it stuck, it's not because it's keeping it stuck, it's because you're doing it. And the first thing we can do is just two things: unclench our ass and unclench our stomachs. So if you put some post-it notes up, I did this. I had post-it notes that said, ask me about my ass, which was quite fun. And, you know, very conversational starter, right? And so my clients would come in and go, what about your ass? And I'm like, thank you. Unclenching.
Yeah.
So most of us have a lot of tension in our pelvic floor.
Yeah.
And actually, incontinence is too much tension for most of us in the West, by the way. So stop your Kegels right now.
Mm.
Really, this idea of relaxing our anus and relaxing our stomach means that we're relaxing our pelvic floor. When we relax our pelvic floor, it allows our diaphragm to drop normally in a breath.
Yeah.
And so you create the space inside of you
Mm.
to not live in a contracted state. And remember, I said in the beginning, everything's about expansion and contraction. If you're chronically contracted, you can't receive anything. It's like holding your fist closed,
Yeah.
right? Nothing, nobody can give you anything. While if you remain open and occasionally closed, because remember, it's about texture. So that pulse of the universe has a pulse. We have a pulse. The pulse is contraction and expansion. So look for
Yeah.
places in your body, especially your pelvic floor, that are contracted. And you may not even feel them. So you might have to like clench really, really, really hard. Like if you clench your anus and everything really, really hard and hold it as tight as you can and then relax, you
Yeah.
might feel, oh, wait, oh, that feels different. And then push out, do the reverse, push out, push out, push out, push out, push down like a bowel movement, and then relax. You'll find where neutral is.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
a pretty simple exercise. You can do it, you know, while you're brushing your teeth. You can momentarily get at a stoplight. You're standing in a grocery line. You can
Mm.
just relax. And don't worry about that six-pack flat ab that everybody says they need to have, because that usually ruins your sex life too.
Oh, thank you so much, Tanya. It's been delightful. Thank you. One easy way that people can get in touch with you.
As you said earlier, if you spell my name right and hit Google, my name in Google, if you can't find me, you're not spelling it right. It's Tanja Diamond.
Yeah,
Yeah, you'll find me. I'm all over the internet.
absolutely. Absolutely. I found you everywhere, as you said. I mean, yeah, websites, YouTube, videos, everything. So podcasts. I mean, yeah. But yeah, you are. That's right. Tanya with a J is brilliant. But thank you so much for being a guest today. I've so enjoyed this, and I hope listeners have too as well. Thank you.
Really had a great time. Thank you so much.